very unusual for us to do a summer program, but we thought it was worth giving it a try. I am not an expert on baseball. I did play Little League and a couple of years in high school, and I'll try to talk like I know what I'm talking about, but it may take a bit. This isn't an all-encompassing history. It can't be. We'd be here for all night long and into tomorrow. But it's kind of some of the highlights of the game of baseball as it relates to the town of Clinton. So you'll see some familiar people. I'll try to point out some of these slides of teams. Everybody's identified, but I don't know if you can even read it from the back or not. So we'll see what happens. And this is the first and probably the only time I'm giving this show. So believe me, you'll see me looking at my cheat notes often. I promise. Before we begin, I hope if you're not a member yet, you took one of these. Back about 6-8 months ago, our goal was to have 100 members coming out of the pandemic. And I understand 3 people joined tonight, and that means we are at 99. If you haven't joined for 2022, please think about joining. When you join, you get free admission to programs, and we'll have at least 3 more programs this year. In September or October, we're going to do it's like a trivia night. It's going to be individual trivia, but also we'll have the answers up here in some way. In November, we're going to have a huge program. It's on the history of High Street. And we've asked John Cannon. Is it John? Yes, he's a photographer. You've probably seen some of his stuff on Facebook. Takes gorgeous shots. And he is working with us doing a lot of this before and after of High Street. We're going to have some people coming in telling some stories. People we hope like Cindy Cannon, who's been on the street for 50 years and would have some pretty good stories to tell. And talk about famous fires and disasters and things like that. All about High Street. And with it is going to be some kind of art show. We haven't quite decided that. And all of that is brought to you by the Clinton Cultural Council. We got a grant to do that. And then the Christmas party, I still haven't set up. We're leaning toward what they did, something like what they did at the Senior Center, which was a murder mystery that occurs in front of you, and you're here, and you solve the problem. They have a Christmas mystery. So I forgot what the name of it is. It's a little catchy tune that you have to solve the murder. So that's what we're working on for the rest of the year. All right, with that, here we go. Here goes nothing, as they say. All right, the reason I love baseball so much is probably the time of year it comes. And, you know, hope springs eternal, but if you're a baseball fan, if you're a baseball player, there's just something about baseball in spring. The days are getting longer, the snow is gone, the days are getting warmer, high hopes. If your team was the worst team ever, whether you played on it or you're just a fan, here it is, it's a new season, it's a new time, you know, new hopes, new dreams. No more wait till next year, and all those other great things that we used to say, especially when we followed the Red Sox years ago. You know, the best they ever did was like 7th or 8th place, and you know, every year you said the same thing. Next year we're going to get them. It's going to be better next year. And as a player, you do that too. So this is the 1961 Clinton High School team, and you can see the coach on the far left is Bill Goslin, one of the greatest gentlemen you'd ever want to know. I worked with him for many years at Clinton High School, and like any coach, he had to be very positive and very upbeat. So you can see from the little information that Goslin mentioned that most of the boys on this year's team are real workers and should cause the opposing teams quite a bit of trouble before the season ends. I guess all coaches say that, you know, but it doesn't always turn out that way. I'll give you a personal story. When I was a freshman, I played JV baseball for Clinton High. Billy Walsh was our coach. And we lost every single game, and I mean 11-0, 13-1, I remember. We were so immature, we were so stupid, we really were, that on the bus rides home from a loss, you wouldn't even know if we just beat the team 20-0 or we just lost 20-0. I didn't care. It was like we were laughing, having a good time. It was awful. So anyway, the second year, most of us were still playing JVs because we weren't good enough to go up to varsity. So the first year, opening game in Hudson, we win the game. Oh, wow. I mean, everybody got a hit, even I did. and it was like, and honest to God, on the way home, it wasn't just like, you know, we could actually go undefeated this year. You know, we actually thought, like, look, we're back together again. Most of us are here for a second year, more experience. We're probably just gonna keep on winning. We lost the rest of the game. And the same team in Hudson came to Clinton. They beat the living hell out of us. So you just don't know. And on this team, Mr. Goslin believed in them. But then again, these were the first two games. 17-0, they lost, and 16-0. They ended up going 4-11, and they had some good players: Paul Cherubini, Joe Dentino, Billy Bazidlo, and this freshman phenom named Buddy Lerner. And Buddy, as you know, was a great athlete, and 30 years later or so, his twin boys were on the state champion CHS Gales baseball team. So that was pretty cool. And by the way, about Mr. Goslin, that most people probably didn't even know because he wasn't that type of guy to tell everybody, but he was a part-time scout for the Kansas City Athletics in 1960. He was very quiet about it, but he was a talented athlete himself, and he became a scout. Mr. I can't say enough good things about Mr. Goslin. I worked for the school system for 43 years, and I worked with a lot of, I'll say, gentlemen that were gentlemen publicly, to parents, to kids, but when they were yelling at me behind closed doors, they weren't gentlemen, trust me. They're not even close, but not this man. He was a gentleman through and through all the time, good, bad. He was the classiest guy I ever met in my life. He was just a wonderful, wonderful man.
Well, that doesn't seem to be mine.
Okay, here's Fuller Field. And this started off, remember, as a place called Boynton's Lot. You know where Boynton Street is, down on North High Street? That's who owned the land, Boynton. And that's a very early map. You can't see much of it, but the Clinton Baseball Association bought the field from Mr. Boynton. And this is an 1878 map, and that's where we got the idea to begin with, that baseball was going on that diamond, exactly the same shape and everything, since 1878. The bad news is that I know what the signs say about the Guinness Book of Records and all that, we're not in it anymore. I don't know what happened, but there was the field in Canada, and we beat them out. And somehow the author of the book, The Extraordinary Town, proved that we were the oldest. And since that time, the Canadian field has apparently proven beyond that they are the oldest people. So we're not there, but we are. I don't think anyone's ever argued we're the oldest in America. So that's pretty good. So this is the first article where they ever mentioned Boynton's Lot. And so they're talking about teams playing there, 500 people going to the game. And I love the way they put it. 200 of them were deadheads. And that's because they put a brand new fence all around what I'm going to call Fuller Field. It was not Fuller Field then, it was Boynton's Lot. And of course, you had people, climbing up over the fence, looking over deadheads, or looking in the knotholes. and all of that. So 500 people were there, but 200 of them didn't bother to pay the price of the ticket. They were hiding or whatever. And this is, I think, pretty interesting. And this is kind of typical Clinton. Remember that the newspaper at the time was a weekly. So there were games probably every other day. So on the Saturday Current, the Clinton Current, they would have to show box scores from maybe 2, 3, 4 different games. So on the same page, we have this article here that the Westboroughs, that was the Westborough town team, beat the Clinton town team. Looks like it's 6-1, all right? And all these guys are from Clinton, all right? And they're pretty common names for Clinton. O'Neill, Conway, Bernard, McLaughlin, Burke, Donahue, Lloyd, and McKeechee, okay? Now, on the same page, I want to make sure I don't trip over wires. On the same page, we now have Clinton versus Hudson. And look at the Clinton team. Gilligan, Cronin, Sweeney, Quinn, Gardner, Crook, Keith, Burke, and Gaffney. All right? So what happened is that it was a simple solution, but most people couldn't accept the fact that it was the Westborough team went bankrupt. And the Clinton manager, all right, bought the Westboroughs and fired every Clinton ball player except one. And immediately hired these guys who were not from around here, but were one of the best minor league teams in baseball history, without a doubt. So, in a way, it's kind of strange. None of them are from Clinton, but they became known as the Clintons. They were the Clinton team. And they beat up on everybody, constantly. And here they are here. So, by the way, we sell these are postcards. We sell them for $1 out at the main table. And this is like, Bob Latini told me that these are in a frame out there, but they're actually little baseball cards. So probably every one of these is worth a few bucks. This is 1878. And so starting up there, I took some notes on each player. Top right, top left is, I think it's Gardner. So Gardner was the pitcher, and they say he was a really tough guy to get along with. He just a sourpuss, kind of a rotten personality. He was kind of a bully on the team, that kind of guy. And he ended up playing Major League Baseball for 9 years. Next one over was Cronin. He was the second baseman, and he was captain of the team. He came from Boston, and his major league record, he played in the major leagues for 1 week. And unfortunately, he died young. The next guy down was Gilligan, top right. Gilligan was the catcher, and he played in the major leagues for 13 years. And he had a very famous trick that he used. I thought it was really cute. Remember the early days of baseball? The umpire was behind the pitcher, okay, not behind the plate. And the catcher was not really snug up against home plate. He was back probably a good 4 or 5 feet. So this catcher, what's his name, Gilligan? He would go out to talk to the pitcher and start to walk back, and they must have had some kind of count or hand signal. And he would start to walk back. The batter, of course, was waiting for the guy to get into position. And the pitcher would throw the pitch, and somehow magically the catcher would turn around at just the right moment, catch it, and it'd be strike one against the batter. But he wasn't expecting it. And apparently it worked quite often. So where are we? Sweeney is the next guy. Next one, middle right. Sweeney was the first baseman. He was younger than most of the others. He played in the majors for only 3 months. And what happened is his best friend on the team died during this season, which I'll get to in a minute. And he really was never the same again. The next guy was Gaffney, down bottom right. Gaffney was the left fielder. He was from Worcester, and he later went into umpiring. And in the early days of baseball, he was called the king of umpires. He was the highest paid umpire in baseball. at the time in these early days of baseball. He was the first one when they had moved to behind the plate. When there was a runner on base, he would move from behind the plate to behind the pitcher, just so he had a better eye. This is back in the days when there was only one umpire, of course. So he was the first one to do that move. And also, he was the guy who, believe it or not, invented the special shirt that umpires use that have the baseballs stored in them. He was the guy that invented that. They still use the same design today. And again, he played for Clinton in 1878. Dignon was the shortstop. He played for Boston for a short time. He died young. Crook was the third baseman, right here. He was the third baseman. And he was originally, Dignon was the shortstop. He played for Boston. Crook was the third baseman, originally from Philadelphia. And he's the guy that died during the year. The Clintons were in Springfield, playing the Springfield team. And they were fooling around at a hotel there. And he and another young guy on the team were running around just goofing off. And he actually fell into an open air vent and fell like 3 or 4 stories. And again, some of the younger team members were just never the same again. They lost their desire to even play baseball. And actually, each member of this team donated a week's pay to Crook's mother to help out with the funeral costs and things like that. And then the last guy, of course, is Tim Keefe. And Tim Keefe was a center fielder on this team. He might have pitched every now and then, but of course he ended up playing 14 seasons in the major league. He won 342 games as a pitcher. He's the one who developed the change-up pitch that nobody ever had until he came along. And he later designed baseball uniforms, and he, of course, is in the Baseball Hall of Fame. In 1964, he was brought in. And of course, this change in the rosters, people did not like this, of course, especially opposing teams. So it was written up, believe it or not, in the Boston Globe, and then later on in the Clinton Current, that one of the teams that the Clintons defeated was very upset about it, and basically said they claimed that they were not expecting to play against the Westboroughs. And this is the manager now of the new Clinton team. And he says, I claim there is no such club, as they disbanded 2 weeks ago. We put no club into the field except the Clintons. And we did not play the Natics the 10th of August and get beat 9-6. It was the Hudsons that we played on that day. I am sorry they fared badly, but I do not want the impression to go forth that we try to play any 9 but our own. So they published this apology almost, because teams were getting a little confused. They thought they were coming to play the Clintons and probably beat the heck out of them. Instead, they were playing the Clintons that used to be the Westboroughs, and they couldn't beat them, because nobody could. Here's Tim Keefe, some of the cards that I have. I think they're in the other room, under the mirror. Here's his Hall of Fame card. These, of course, are reproductions. I couldn't possibly afford the real things, but they probably go for, I think it's $5,000 or $6,000 now. You could get a, like a tobacco card of Tim Keefe. And there's a little bit more about him. He was quite the gentleman. He had 4 World Series victories in 1 year. So he won all 4 games in a World Series. He once pitched a doubleheader, won a doubleheader. He allowed 3 hits altogether. He did a 1-hitter in the morning, and after lunch, he threw a 2-hitter. Pretty good. He was that good. I think the Giants, at the time, the New York Giants. And of course, our own Billy Hamilton would have played certainly on Boynton's luck, no doubt about it. He was born in New Jersey, but he was a local player who certainly played on that field. He was the 3rd leading base stealer in baseball history. He had a lifetime batting average of .344, scored 100 runs a season for 11 years. 11 years. And he once stole 7 bases in one game, which was a modern record. One person was tied. So the guy was on base like all the time. There was more cards of Billy Hamilton. He was one of these guys that also had a great eye. So he walked often, all right? And then he could hit, obviously at a .344 batting average, and he was a speedster. So he was always on base all the time. There was one season that he scored more runs than games, which is almost unheard of. So if he had 150 games, he scored 160 times. I mean, more than one time a game. That's almost impossible. And that's what he did. He was a gentleman through and through. This is his home at 75 Forest Street. And he also owned a large block on the corner of High and Plain. When I was a kid, and down at Fuller Field, watching a football game, and the sky opened up, everybody ran to this big house on the corner of Plain and High. And it had kind of this arched opening that you could throw 15, 20 kids in there, and you'd be, out of the rain. And that was the Hamilton block. I remember my parents saying the Hamilton block. It didn't mean anything to me then. Now it's gone and there's some condos there. But that was the Hamilton block. Billy Hamilton made more of his money in real estate. He invested in real estate in Worcester. He later moved to Worcester. He owned this home and he owned the block too. And that's where he made his money. And this is something that most people don't know about. I hope you've heard probably of Billy Sunday. Billy Sunday was the modern version, maybe the old-fashioned version of somebody like Billy Graham. He was one of the leading evangelists of his times, and he was a baseball player. And he roomed with Billy Hamilton from Clinton. And it was Billy that really convinced him to go into the religious life. Billy Hamilton was not like your most ball players of that era. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink, he didn't swear. A really clean living guy. And Billy Sunday was kind of the same way. That's probably why they bonded. On the road, they were roommates. And Billy Sunday would confide in him about, I don't know if I want to keep playing ball or not. And it was Billy Hamilton from Clinton that convinced him, no, you got to follow your heart. You got to do what you got to do. And led him to this, where he wrote books and was one of the leading evangelists in the United States. Malachi Kittredge, I don't have any pictures, I wish I did. He was a catcher in the major leagues from Clinton for 16 years. He was not a strong batter, but he was a very good defensive catcher. And he is, the yearbooks say, he was one of several catchers who invented the use of hand signals for between the pitcher and the catcher, which of course is used today all the time. This guy is kind of a mystery guy. Most people don't know a lot about him. This is the famous James Ryan, Jimmy Ryan. And he was really a real Clintonian. He was born in Clinton on Railroad Street, which is long, long gone. But it was somewhere along the Nashua River behind like Dunn and Company. Somewhere along in there, kind of in my old neighborhood. And he was a Clinton High School graduate. He went to Holy Cross for 2 years and played baseball for them. Then he transferred to Boston College and played 2 years for them. And altogether, he was, I think, 18 years in the major leagues, most of them with the Chicago White Sox. He hit over 300 in 13 of those 18 years. And it's funny, there's a record that probably is going to be broken one of these years. But he, every now and then they let him pitch. And in one particular game, he pitched and he hit for the cycle. And at least for the moment, he is the only player in baseball history ever to pitch and hit for the cycle. But you baseball fans know there's a guy for, who am I talking about? Yes. Who's he play for? Angels. And he is not only a tremendous hitter, he's a tremendous pitcher, and he'll probably at least tie that record sooner or later. He's a great pitcher, he's a great hitter. So maybe that will go away. This guy was so good, he is not in the Hall of Fame, but probably should be. And about 15, 20 years ago, the veterans group of the Hall of Fame decided to go through and do research to I think they listed the 100 best baseball players from the early days of baseball, not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And Jimmy Ryan was one of them. But then they only picked, I think, maybe 10 more to actually go into the Hall of Fame. And Jimmy did not make that cut. But he probably should be in the Hall of Fame. And he was the opposite of Billy Hamilton. He was a drinker and a carouser and a troublemaker. Enjoyed it all, too. Now, this is one of these legends and lores, and that's what we're talking about tonight anyway. But I've been the one spouting this off for a while, and now I hear it from other people. But supposedly the longest ball ever hit at Fuller Field by a right-handed hitter was by Mike McDonald of Rigby Road, and it landed in the Nashua River. Now, you got to know your geography. And I have no idea if it's true or not, of course, but think about that. First of all, the wall in left field wasn't built till the 1930s. That was a WPA project. So I don't know what Boynton's lot looked like, but it could have been the level field and then just a big slope. I don't even know what year this was, so who knows if there were any houses across the street like there is today. And the Nashua River does come fairly close. So I don't think it landed on the fly on the Nashua River, but could it have bounced into the Nashua River? Yeah, I think it's possible. And we got to cover the left-handers too, for you people that have that affliction. Left-handed batter, it hit the school, it hit Parkhurst School. So that's probably a pretty good poke too. The school is now gone and the Parks and Recreation building is in its place. But from home plate, that's a tag and a half. We talked about that. All right, here's a little talk about the no-hit twins. And I almost wish we had a relative of Angie here to complete the story. I played 1 year of softball down Vale Street with Angie. He was the fearless leader of our team. And he was an unbelievable, oh yeah, there's a relative, gee, of course. He was, I mean, what a competitor. He did not show up, even slow pitch softball, for exercise or something. No, that was not what he was about. He was there to win. That was the type of guy he was. And he expected that all the time. He expected to win every pitch, every inning, every game. That was how it was. And that's probably why he was so successful.
And he was ambidextrous.
What's that?
He was ambidextrous.
I don't think I knew that. Really?
He would pitch right-handed, and he would pitch left-handed.
Wow. And that's from his niece? Niece? Yes.
Goddaughter and niece.
Oh,
yes. He was a special.
So anyway, in 1948, the summer of 48, these two guys made national news, all right? That's Angie Bazzillo, of course, on the left. I think Edward was his real name.
Correct.
And then on the right was Billy Stuka. And they pitched, I have them out here, but in the same week, they each pitched 2 no-hitters, all right? I mean, that's like unheard of in any level of baseball. That in 1 week in Clinton, we had these guys pitch no-hitters. So let me explain quickly that, so we had 4 no-hitters in 1 game. On Sunday, July 25, Billy Stuka pitched a no-hitter. He won 6-1. And in the last inning, he hit a batter. That batter stole second and third and scored on a passed ball. So it was a no-hitter, but they had a run scored. The very next day, July 26, Angie Bazzillo pitched a no-hitter, winning 5-0. The only base runners came from 3 walks. He struck out 14 batters. Okay? So on Wednesday, July 28th, Stuka's back on the mound. He pitched a no-hitter, winning 11-1. He hit a batter, when he allowed 3 walks in a row, but was helped by great plays in the field by Jim McNally in left field and Buddy Ernst at shortstop, who saved the no-hitter. And then on Friday, July 30, Angie was up pitching again. He pitched a no-hitter, winning 3-0. He allowed 1 walk, struck out 16, and no ball was hit to the outfield. Everything was in the infield. That's how dominating these guys were, both of them. So, this is what I just said, basically.
What year was that?
1948, the summer of 48. And it was not for Clinton High School. I think some people think that. This was American Legion ball, all right? So high school kids, really from all over the area, because they were playing Legion ball, many different, Pittsburgh, Leominster, whatever. So they made the newspaper all over the place. They made TV and radio too. Here was a picture that was in the item of, that's Joe McCaffrey, the athletic director for Clinton High, bottom right. And of course, Angie on the top left and Stuka on the top right. And then I guess, who else we got? Bunk Hadley was the broadcaster. And then Craven Coulter, the managing editor of the item. So it was quite the thing to have these guys, you know, and again, it was national news. It would have to be national news. So the rest of the summer didn't get much press, but you know, they had to finish that summer league, the American Legion League. And here's what they did after the no-hitters. So Angie won 10-2, it was a 2-hitter. Stuka won 7-0, a 1-hitter. Angie won 7-0, a 1-hitter. Stuka wins 3-0, a 3-hitter. Angie wins 3-1, a 2-hitter. And Stuka wins 8-1, a 1-hitter. I mean, these guys were just total domination. And they were making news everywhere. And of course, scouts were already starting to come. And they would have been not just entering their junior year at Clinton High School. So this was by the end of their junior year. And this, of course, is Angie, and that's Billy Stuka. And in the middle, anybody know? Earl Wilson. He was the catcher. I don't think he was the catcher that game where they had 2 stolen bases and a passed ball, because he was an all-star. He was an excellent ball player. But anyway, this is how the schedule turned out in 1949. And that first game, 21-0, I think was another no-hitter by Angie. And I think that was his 3rd or 4th no-hitter altogether in his career. And they won every game. They went into the playoffs and won their first game. And then they lost a heartbreaker to Pittsfield 3-1 in their last game. And by the way, just for anybody who's really interested in Clinton High athletics, that year, which would have been the 48-49 school year, they were league champs in every sport. Football league champs, basketball league champs, baseball league champs. Total domination of the league. So in the summer of 1950, Angie pitched his 5th no-hitter. What he was doing is, Angie wasn't sure what he was going to do, according to the newspapers. He wasn't sure if he was going to go to college. He wasn't sure if, certainly the Boston Braves were interested in him, and they were chasing him to sign. But he wasn't sure what to do. Billy Stuka, on the other hand, knew he wanted to go to BC. He already had a brother there, and his brother, one of his older brothers, was quarterback for BC during the Coconut Grove game. In fact, remember, the other quarterback was a Clinton guy too. Ray Ball was the quarterback for Holy Cross. Steve Stuka was the quarterback for BC. And of course, nobody remembers the game other than the huge upset. It was the aftermath of the fire and the lives lost and things like that. But Angie wasn't sure what he was going to do. So he joined this Northborough team. They were playing other teams. And wouldn't you know, he pitches another no-hitter, 5-0. Now, it's tough to keep up with Angie, because then he started to go all over the place. And Gene can fill us in a little bit. So, unfortunately, the worst news is in the middle. But what he did was, he did sign with the Boston Braves, and he went into their minor league system. And I don't know if they had like single A, double A, and triple A then, but he he went to maybe, he might have gone right away to like a AAA type thing. But apparently they thought he was too small, too lightweight, and they dropped him to like AA. But he dominated there most of the time. And so he was doing very well there, and they were following him very closely. And then, of course, along comes this. Remember now, this is 1950, the Korean War coming up. So a report from Clinton reads, Angie Bozidlo at 44 Nashua Street, this town, now the property of the Boston Braves, and playing with a team in Canada, that's the Quebec article over there, was recently called back to the town by the draft board to keep an appointment made for him by the Uncle Sam Boosters Club. That's what they call it. So, but Angie was such a talented guy that he goes into the Army, and they're not going to put him in the kitchen, they're going to make him pitch. And so he starts pitching for Army teams, not only in the United States, but I think he went over to Germany, and look at his record. He was 10-1 while pitching for the Army team, and they would go from base to base, and he would dominate there too. And unfortunately, I think this is one of the last things I see about Angie, that in a game in Texas, something happened to his arm. He either threw out his arm, tore a muscle, something like that. And I don't know if that was the end of his career or not, as far as going into the major leagues. I know in November of 1960, he was hired as a part-time scout by the Washington Senators, Major League Baseball team. And I think later on, he was a part-time scout for several Major League teams. I'll tell you this quick story. This is in the this was in the item, but it's also in the Red Sox yearbook, which is in the other room. There's obviously a natural rivalry between cops and firefighters. There always has been. I don't know if it's because of fighting over the budget, who gets the money, or what that is, but they're always at each other's throat about something. Even good-naturedly, they always are. So, Chief, I think it was Kelly, the police chief in Clinton, was always in charge of raising money in Clinton for the Jimmy Fund, for the Boston Red Sox. And he got sick of doing it. And somehow he convinced our fire chief, Tommy Moore, to take it over. Well, of course, Tom being Tom, if you knew him, and I did pretty well, and Tom said, well, you know, bullshit with this. And, I'm going to make 10 times more money than the cops ever made. And I'm going to show them what, and wouldn't you know, he did. He went out and he made far more money than the police chief ever did. And because he did, he got a chance to throw out the first pitch in Fenway Park, right? Now, he did that with the guy from Leominster, a police chief from Leominster, who led the Jimmy Fund in Leominster. So they got to throw out the first pitch, which was great, and he had the last laugh over the cops. The trouble is, in the Red Sox yearbook, they're identified as, both of them, as police chiefs. And I'll clean up my language, but I remember Tom, one of the last few times I talked to him, he said, my biggest claim to fame, and they call me a GD police chief. But I throw in Mark Fidrich. Remember the Bird? Not Larry Bird, this was the Bird, 1976. He was from Northborough. Tony Gannon told me he pitched a no-hitter. Fidrich pitched a no-hitter against the Gales, the Gale JV team at Fuller Field. I could not find any record of that at all, and Tony likes to tell stories. So, I don't know if it's true or not, but I did find this game over here, Algonquin beat Clinton 9-4. You see Fidrich's name in center field, all right? You also see another guy that was a big athlete for Algonquin, was Foraker. Remember Bob Foraker was an announcer of bowling and tour or something? Yeah. He was quite an athlete for Algonquin. But Bird was an interesting guy. Mark Fidrich was a very interesting guy. Really, really different from baseball fans. He was the guy that came on the scene in 1976, American League Rookie of the Year, living right over in Northborough. he would talk to the ball all the time. He would talk to the ball. He would get down on his hands and knees and clean up the mound a little bit. He'd do his own landscaping. He would congratulate every one of his players. Coming off the field, he would shake every single player's hand as they came off the field. He was a really, really different guy. And there's a story that Craig Nettles, who is a despicable character, third baseman for the Yankees, and he was not most of the people around here are a big fan of his. But anyway, he was coming to bat for the Yankees, facing Fidrich for the first time. First time ever. Didn't know anything about him. This guy was a young kid. So Nettles comes to the plate, and this guy is talking to the ball. And he's talking to left and right. So Nettles starts talking to his bat. and he says, and the catcher had this story, and he told it to the newspapers. The catcher's listening to him, and he's saying, look it, to his bat. Look it, no matter what he's telling the ball, you've got to get a hit. Right? You've got to get the ball out there, whatever. Anyway, so everyone's kind of laughing over this. Fidrich struck him out, and then as Nettles went back to the dugout, he said, damn foreign bats, they don't understand English. Bill Lee used to hang around Clinton all the time. He was just in the news. He had some kind of problem, I guess. He's okay now, but Bill Lee would hang around Clinton all the time. He had made friends at Fenway with two Lancaster guys that I knew very well. Both went to AUC. And so in off-season, he played basketball at St. John's Gym, at Clinton High School, and running around, and nobody seemed to worry about him getting hurt or anything else. He was trying to stay in shape. So he was always in town. He was always at Angie's, and he was called the Spaceman. He was an interesting guy.
But what year was that?
That would have been probably mid to late 70s, maybe. Here's a classmate of mine, class of 1970, Larry Bashaw, was a terrific pitcher. His junior and senior year for the Gales. And there's Angie there. Yeah. If Angie's there helping him to sign, so Angie was probably a scout for probably the Cardinals too. I think he was a scout for the Red Sox later on. But that's Larry and his wife and his mom. And there he is in his Cardinals uniform. He was in the minor leagues for 3 or 4 years. He did pretty well. Great guy. Now lives down in Florida or down south somewhere. He's been up for a few reunions, but great kid. This is Jerry LaPena, and I don't know if anybody remembers him or whatever. I do. Oh, did you? Oh, great. Well, I talked to him the other day. He's an interesting guy. It was his wife that was busy telling me all about the great things he did. He wouldn't say it, but that was just the way it is. But Jerry was from the class of 58, and and Eddie, you can probably round out this a little bit. Some of this, he claims that's not true, the upper right there, 1960, about he decided not to bother signing for $15,000 with the Detroit Tigers. He was a tremendous athlete, he was a football player too, and a baseball player. But he also loved fast-pitch softball. His father had been, I think, a fast-pitch softball player. And so I think he ended up trying out for the Mets, and he told me on the phone, he now lives in Connecticut. He would be, how old, Ed, roughly?
He was ahead of me, so 82.
82? Well, but there was some kind of national tryouts for amateur baseball, and he tried out and made the team. And it was the same system. I think it's called the Hearst system anyway, that signed Bill Monboquette for the Red Sox, Al Kaline for the Tigers. It was the same system. It was just a way that if you were a talented baseball player, you could go to these various areas of the country, try out for the team, and possibly make it. Not only did he make it, but they played games all over the United States, and he did very, very well, single-handedly winning, knocking in winning runs from time to time and stuff like that. He did very, very well. And he was quite a guy. This is what I learned from him on the phone more than anything. He was a baseball and football player at Clinton High. He tried out for the Hearst Sandlot team at Fenway Park, and he played in the All-Star game throughout the country. He traveled all over the country playing other All-Star teams. And he left baseball for fast-pitch softball. He loved fast-pitch softball. He was the star of the Providence, Rhode Island Local 57 team. And that was a union team. I don't know the company name or whatever. Now, there's a story somebody told me when I talked about doing this program. And they said, of course, you had to work for the company to be on the Local 57 team. And you had to be a member of the union, I guess, too, you know? But, of course, they only wanted a talented guy like that to have him play on his team, on their baseball team, on their softball team. So his job, supposedly, and I don't know if this is true, they had these little substations all around, I think it was Connecticut, not too many miles away, maybe 10 or 15 miles away. And his job every morning was to get into a truck and go flip a switch, you know, at each one of the substations. And again, all because he was that talented that they wanted him to play softball for them. They didn't care about what he did. So, wish teachers' unions were like that. Anyway, he later played for the Ray Bestos Cardinals in Connecticut, and he played 80 to 100 games a year. Once again, they traveled all over the country, and that team of his was the fast pitch champions in 1970, 1972, and 1976. And he is in the Connecticut Softball Hall of Fame. And I don't think he's been back this way in a while. He married Valerie girl. Yes, Mean Joe's sister. I'm thinking of Mean Joe, the custodian's daughter, right? Yes. Yes. All right, some minor league cards. I'm going to get a little bit into collecting now. A little bit. There's more to come, believe me. But I was recently at our Blue Sox game, and I decided I got to buy a set of cards. These guys have already been up to the Red Sox and down and back, and they're probably now injured the way things are going. But minor league cards can be, you know, could be valuable depending upon what happens to these guys in the future. You know, 20 years from now, one of these guys could be the greatest ball player that ever lived. We don't know. But here is, I have them out there, Zach Sawyer from Clinton. All right, graduated from Clinton High School in 1991. He was a product of the Oakland A's. And you can see his card there that says he's from Clinton, Mass. He would be the son of John and Debbie Sawyer. And then he had a cousin, Joe Sawyer, who of course is the superintendent of schools in Shrewsbury, was a tremendous athlete, played all three sports in Clinton. He played baseball for Princeton University. And I think they were cousins. Did I see his mom here somewhere? There she is, right? Yeah. Did he play all 4 years for Princeton?
Yes.
Did he? Yeah. And now he's like the best superintendent in Massachusetts. Yes. Really is. Terrific guy. This is my favorite card. I don't need a script for this. I love this one. You'll find these on eBay. You could pay up to $25, $30 for it, but I'll tell you the story quickly. This has nothing to do with Clinton. This guy was up and down the league many times. He was in the minor leagues. He'd go up to the majors and pitch. He'd come back down to the minors. He was on his last hurrah for this Las Vegas Stars. And he said he always wanted to be on a baseball card showing getting hit. I'll be polite, in the solar plexus. That's how he wanted his card depicted. He wanted to be getting hit in the solar plexus. So, anyway, he went out to, it wasn't Topps then, it was some probably local company that got the contract to do the cards. So he went and he was the first one out. The guys loved him because he was, you know, he was an old timer in the league. These other guys were up and coming. And so he went out and he told the photographer, this is what I want for my picture. And some young guy who, we can't do that, sir. You know, I can't do that. I'll be in trouble with my boss. Blah, blah. No, this is what I want. I want this picture. And the guy said no. Anyway, he went back into the locker room and he told all these younger players that were there, he said, don't sign the contract for your picture on this, bubblegum card, whatever. Don't do that until I get my way. And they loved him so much that all of them did the same thing. They came out and they had their picture taken and they got a contract and you have to sign it before they release it, and none of them would sign it. And they all said to this poor young photographer, we're not signing this till Keith gets his way. So wouldn't you know, he got his way, he took super glue, put it there, took a while, but it stuck there. And now there he is making a face, and it went out, whatever. And he got his way. How about that? I don't know much about Reverend James Prendergast, but he played for Holy Cross, and he lived at 278 Woodlawn Street, and he was the first Holy Cross player ever to hit a home run. How about that? Long time ago. Here's Tim Fortuna, a 30-year-old rookie in 1992. This is Sammy Santos' son. He took the name of his stepfather. I've been in touch with him quite a bit. He's quite a guy. He's a scout for the New York Mets now. He went to the Clinton Middle School. I remember him as Tim Santos then. He's writing his memoirs now, and he's quite a guy. His childhood was absolutely awful. It's an amazing story, and if it ever comes out, and you can find him online and probably read part of the story, but abused as a kid, left baseball for construction. Finally, I think at a construction site, he threw a bottle or something somewhere, and they couldn't believe that he could hit something that far away. And that's when it all started up again. You want to try out for this team or that team or whatever. So I've been in touch with him, and I told him I wanted him to come and speak tonight. That was the original plan, and he couldn't. But I said to him, what can I tell the audience about you, Tim? And he said, well, tell them this. Read it to him. So I did. Here we go. I was born and raised in Clinton my first 16 years of life. I was raised by a single mom of 4. She was blue collar through and through and did her very best. We lived in the projects, and I absolutely loved sports, especially baseball. My grandfather and Tony Notaro were my first true inspirations. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I moved away before high school graduation. After losing myself and baseball, I found myself in California on the greatest journey of my life. I found baseball again. My love was rekindled. It didn't happen overnight, but ultimately I was discovered as a baseball prospect. The quick version, I pitched professionally until I was 36 years old, got 2 years and 1 day of Major League Baseball service time, and I'm now in my 23rd year of being a professional baseball scout. Lastly, I have made a life out of a dream. It all started at a kitchen table in Clinton, Mass, wishing the rain to go away while growing up in the projects. Currently, I'm trying to publish my memoirs so my grandchildren will know where their East Coast Grampy came from. So I thought that was just great and so fitting. Great guy, great guy. And here he is with Vin Scully. That's Tim on the right, and here he is with Vin Scully, who recently passed away, famous broadcaster. Here's some odd baseball cards. I am a collector, but I'm a lousy collector. I don't go out and buy too much. I don't know what I have. I have so many things, and I don't know what they are. I don't know. Well, anyway, just a few things. We're getting a little bit away from Clinton, but we'll get back to Clinton. This is Lou Burdette, I think 1959 card. I don't know how I ended up with it, but I did. He was a right-handed pitcher, but he was also kind of a clown. So he put the glove on his right hand just to be different. And the photographer snapped his picture, and now it's kind of like a collector's thing. You can get it on eBay or whatever for probably $5 to $10. But obviously, you can't pitch with your right hand if your glove is on it. But that's how he posed. The next one is rather interesting, of course. Most of you might know that one. Billy Ripken I feel bad for the guy, actually, I really do. He played for the Orioles. His brother was the great Cal Ripken Jr., the ultimate Hall of Famer and everything else, and was a teammate of his, which probably didn't help this guy's cause much. His father, Cal Ripken Sr., was the manager of the team, so that probably didn't help him much. So I have a feeling he was kind of the butt of jokes and locker room gags and stuff like that. So when he posed for his baseball card, somebody wrote something on the bottom of his bat. And it's valuable today, maybe not as valuable as when it first came out, but that's because it's always valuable if they change it, they try to change it. So I have the odd natural look, which is the actual swear that they wrote on the bottom of his bat. But some cards came out that it was like, I don't know what you call it, but they phased it out. It looked funny. You can see something there, but you can't read it. Somebody else just had a little black box on the bottom of the bat. That's what they did too. But I happen to have the real one. And I mean, at one time it was worth huge bucks. Now I think it's kind of passé. But anyway.
What does it say?
What is this?
I'll tell you later. Here's Claude Raymond, who is not all that famous. He's famous in Canada. He's actually in the Canada Baseball Hall of Fame. Born in Canada, pitched in the United States for some teams, and then later on pitched for, I think, the Montreal Expos. And in reality, he was an all-star for 1 year, ended with like roughly a 50-50 record, like 46 wins and 55 losses or something like that. But he was made famous by Topps because this is the only Topps card that ever went out to the public where the ball player has his fly over. What are you gonna do? You gotta be famous for something. You gotta be famous for something. Here's Yaz cards, some of my old ones, my original ones. And this is a very modern card. This is Carl Yastrzemski's grandson, and this is this year's card. And they don't know how to spell Yastrzemski. You can see at the end, M-K-S-I or something. So again, it's not really worth much unless they come out with another card and fix it, and then that card might be worth a little something. But again, in New England, we know how to spell Yaz, that's for sure. Here's another one, 1969, Aurelio Rodriguez, and here's 1970. And if they don't look alike, it's because, by mistake, this is the bat boy for the Angels. That's Aurelio. Somehow or other, the English translation didn't work, and the bat boy posed. This is just a simple reverse image. They probably didn't catch up with Larry Haney, so in one picture, he's a right-handed catcher, and another one, he's a left-handed catcher. They just switched them around. Easy solution. This was a weird card. Not very well known, Jim Umbright, I think his name is, but on the back of his card, it says he died. And it's strange, right here. Jim Umbright passed away on Wednesday, April 8, 1964. So this is a 1964 card, and he was very sick during spring training, and they issued the card, but I guess before it went to print or something, they actually put his death notice on the back. You don't see that too often.
Did he actually die?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is a modern one, Derek Jeter. Some of you probably have that. Graphic artists want to have a little fun. So this is the real card, and then over here, in this card, the graphic artist decided to put George Bush in the audience, who's not over there, and then Mickey Mantle waiting to bat. And Mickey Mantle and Derek Jeter never played together, obviously. And now, you know, here I go back to the good old days, but I really, baseball cards today, when I think of it, I was a kid and I don't even remember what they were, what they cost, a nickel, or maybe it was a quarter by then. But you don't see kids buying baseball cards anymore. It's always kind of, I hate to say it, older, fatter guys who want to be millionaires. And they're all lined up, pushing kids out of the way, although I don't think kids buy them anymore. And you don't put them in your bicycle spokes anymore. Because now, here's my Bill Buckner card, which probably might be worth, I don't know, $1.25 or something. I don't know. Someone said he dropped the pen as he signed it, but I don't know if that's true. Never mind. And then nowadays they're doing, oh my God, they have pieces of David Ortiz bat in a baseball card. They have a game-worn uniform. So cards aren't what they used to be. They're just not little pieces of cardboard anymore, and you wouldn't dare put them in your spokes. Anyway, here's the Clinton Little League, formed by the Clinton Exchange Club in 1952. They got their charter in 51, and then they started in the spring of 52. And I know we have some little leaguers from that day in this audience right now. How about that? So these were the team rosters for 1952. I don't know if you can read them, but there were only 4 teams, all right? And 200 kids tried out. It was like a general tryout. 200 boys were interested in being little leaguers, all right? And then the coaches were all there. And then, what was it? It was 40 kids were drafted, I guess you'd say, to try out for a team. So 40 kids out of those 200 tried out for the Dodgers. They went to the Dodger practice. 40 more to the Yankees, 40 others to the Braves, my old team. Hey, coached by.
My dad.
Yep. As he said, oh, Kevin O'Loughlin's a Brave too. Yes, absolutely. Jimmy Hastings was a Brave. Anyway, I don't know how good we were. I don't think we were that good.
We're very good. Once you left, we were very good.
Oh, well, that's about right. And then the Red Sox, of course. So anyway, these were the first kids that made the team. And about 5 years later, it's interesting, I find it interesting. About 5 years later, Mr. and Mrs. Tuttle and Mr. and Mrs. Hamer, Joe Hamer and his wife, Libby Aker, they formed the Clinton Minor League. But when I first read the article doing the research, it said that they formed the minor league for the kids who didn't make Little League. And so I think when we think of minor league, those are the little kids who play that, and the bigger kids play Little League. It sounds like maybe at first it was for those kids who didn't make the team, and that meant maybe they didn't quite have the skill level, so they were going to work on it in minor league. So the Yankees won the very first Little League game played on May 26, 1952. Pat Burke, how about that, was the winning pitcher, allowing only 3 hits and striking out 8 batters. Pat is still around today. Billy Moran had the first base hit in Clinton Little League history. He also hit the first home run, and the fence, by the way, was 190 feet out. Walter Nozick had the first double in Clinton Little League history, and Paul Cravati had the first triple. Oh, look at this. I knew this was going to happen. For some reason, this has been playing tricks on me ever since I've been practicing. These are your Clinton Little League All-Stars, 1952. Now, when I played, there was an All-Star team, and then there was a traveling All-Star team. I think there was only one All-Star team here, but somebody's missing. Who is it? We have the Red Sox and the Yankees.
Braves.
Who is it? The Braves. I should know that. So I don't want to leave them out. So the Brave All-Stars were Ray Jakubowicz, infield, Joe and Maradi, catcher, and Leo Du Bois, outfielder. And all these others were there. Pat Burke and Billy Walsh of Clinton Public Schools leaders were All-Stars. Harry Gannon, there's that Jerry LaPena with the Dodgers. And I gotta say, the item really was, I mean, they handled this. There were box scores and write-ups on every single game and outfit. They kept stats everywhere. The Dodgers won the very first Clinton Little League championship in 1952. Their final record was 12-3. Oh, you're kidding. Another one's missing. But anyway, what they did was every single player in the league, they had stats. I'm only showing you a few, but if you batted 0, you would have been on that list on the right. Every single batter in the Clinton Little League was listed to their final average. And the one that's missing is the pitching records. Every single, if you pitched in a game, everyone was down. How many? By the way, Jerry LaPena was, I think, 7-1. So he pitched far more than everybody else. There were others with a better percentage, 4-0 or 5-0. He was 7-1. And I wish I knew what the tricks were that would happen. These are some pictures of some older teams. And you're probably not going to spot them all or whatever, but this is the 1957 Cardinals. If you want me to slow down or whatever, Buddy Lerner is there, back right. Looks just like him. He hasn't changed one bit. Nope. Here's the 1957 Dodgers. Jerome Philbin is in there. Dave Philbin, the attorney, is over on the back right beside the coach. Who else we got in there? Jack Curran, Billy Hondo's in there, that's right. Willie Wagner, Jerry Bernard. So that's back in the day when every single team was in the paper. You had to be. And if you got a base hit, it was written up in the paper. It was a big deal. Here's the Yankees. They were 8-12. Billy Bazidlo, it says, led the league with a .525 average. So we got Wayne Chatraw, Richard Casasano, Joe Batista, Milton Parker, Coach Nick Dentino, Bill Bazidlo, Paul O'Brien. Who else we got? David O'Toole. I think that was the David O'Toole from the Acre. And my assistant coach when I was a Brave, Joe Casasano, upper right. Here's the runner-up Braves. Yep, the Braves always seem to be runners-up. I don't know. But anyway, Tommy McNamara, Tommy Bazidlo right there. Marvin Gould, Phil Nolan, Eddie McIntyre, Coach Chester Bazidlo. He's right there. That's Gene's dad. Tommy Elam, Barney Hastings, Mal Grady. So all these guys that now have since had kids that in many cases were excellent ball players too. The acorns don't fall far from the tree. These guys are a little bit more my age. You won't find me on that all-star team, but Gary Notaro's in there, Brian Burwinkle, both John Gibbonses are in there. John Gibbons, whose dad was the principal of Clinton High, and John Gibbons, whose dad was the principal of Tohoto. Claudio Petulio, Raul Gonzalez, a lot of different guys. Mike Fazio, John Lavelle, another classmate of mine. Here's the All-Star game. That's Jimmy Hastings in the bottom left corner, right there. Ronnie Bayer, I believe the next one is McGowan. Brian Burwinkle again, Mike Fazio. Behind the second row, John Lavelle, Raul Gonzalez. I don't know what I should. Rick Weatherall, Paul Shimke, and John Burke. They used to call him Mobley. Burke. And John Murphy is there too. He's kind of hidden behind John Lavelle. The great John Murphy was a tremendous basketball player, captain of UMass basketball. His brother, Mike Murphy, Mike Hasselman, Claudio Petulio. And then the coaches were Mr. Manzouris, Mr. Danini. Joe Danini was a coach for a long, long time. John Murphy, the Murphy boys' dad, and Joe Mahefka, who was a long-time coach. And I remember at the end of every Little League season, of course, you had the Little League banquet. And I don't know who the contacts were, but they always brought in a Boston Red Sox player. And it was never, what's that?
My mother was in that did that.
Really?
My father was Nick Dentino.
Yes, I thought so. So he was the one that had the connection?
He did. He and Jimmy Camara coached together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and
Wow.
my mom was in that banquet that brought all the Jimmy Kershaw, all those people.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Every year we had a banquet, and every year there was a big name Kevin, do you remember who the big names were when you were in there?
I remember first off being
Oh, really? I don't remember that, but this is mine. That's Dick Raddatz. And of course, I didn't plan ahead to get an autograph, so you have to use the paper plates that they put in front of you.
I have one on
And
the
Dick Raddatz was called the Monster. He was like 6'6", and at the time I was probably like 4 feet. This guy was unbelievable. I had him sign a couple of other things too, and I've lost them since. But every one of these guys I know came to Clinton at a Little League banquet. I don't know the year or whatever. Frank Malzone, Bob Montgomery, Rick Rosen, Lou Clinton, Bill Monboquette, and Jimmy Pearsall a couple of times. But, so here's my baseball collection very quickly. It's getting warm in here and I want to hustle it up. My mother was a tea drinker and always had tea. And so in the early 60s, in the tea, in a lot of tea, was baseball coins. Little plastic coins, and of course I saved all of them and I still have them today. These happen to be some Red Sox players. They're probably worth 50 cents at the most. They're mine. Later on, they graduated a few years later to metal coins in the tea boxes. It's a lot of tea. So you can see I have many of those, but you'll see Clemente and Mays and Aaron and a lot of the big stars of the day. It's funny, I ask people and they don't seem to remember, but in the early 60s, when we'd spend a week at Rye, New Hampshire, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, whatever, we'd always take one day to go down to Hampton Beach. Hampton Beach had the penny arcade. We saved our pennies all year long so we could go to the arcade. And it doesn't exist anymore, but I would sit in front of the baseball card machine. And you put a penny in, and you press the thing, and out comes a postcard-sized picture of a major leaguer. And I got tons of them. Of course, I was the idiot who wrote all over them. or taped them someplace. So I have many, many more than this, and I don't think they're worth much of anything. I think they're called exhibit cards. But they were a penny, and they were all in a vending machine. And get as many as you want.
Did you know which card you were going to get, or was it?
Not at all. Just kept feeding the machine. Kind of like Foxwoods. But you get something for it, you know. These are some of my other cards. What happened is when most kids were growing up, I must have been behind the times, it figures. But I couldn't bear to throw out the big stars. I remember throwing out other cards myself. But like the big stars, I couldn't bear to get rid of Mickey Mantle or Sandy Koufax or whatever, so I just kept them. So they only have one owner, it's me. They're preserved fairly well. I'm not interested in selling them or whatever. I think my grandchildren will probably enjoy them someday, or the money from the sale. Whatever. I have one flannel. That's a very early baseball card. They're called flannels. And there it is, the only one. I think my father-in-law gave me that one. Here's a Roberto Clemente card I have from 1963. If you look it up, it's worth $300. However, not if you glue it into a book. Remember, I hark back on the real old days. Those days when we sat around the table having breakfast, you weren't screwing around with your phone and all of that stuff. The only thing that you could read was the back of the cereal box, right? That was the only thing you had to read. And for Post cereal, it was covered with baseball cards. So you had to be careful cutting them out. But then, I don't know, I must have sent away for an album for them. And as you can see, the bottom 6 are all the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I must have gotten impatient and said, oh, I might as well throw in some other cards of Pittsburgh Pirates. So I just glue in the other ones that weren't even Post cereal cards. So now Roberto Clemente's worth about a dime, probably, something like that. Back when I was a kid, you could send a letter, a postcard to a baseball player and say, you're my favorite player, and I have an autographed picture. And a month later, you get something in the mail. I have no idea if it's authentic or not. That's a Carl Yastrzemski signed baseball, but I can't prove it. It's Jim Lonborg, of course. And then these locks I have displayed under the mirror. You can buy them on eBay. They're really magnified. They're little padlocks with a magnifying picture of an old player. And even Coke bottles. Used to have Red Sox under the Coke bottles. So it's a collection of different junk, like God knows what. This is probably my favorite stuff. I kind of inherited these. When I was in charge of my godfather's estate, all the relatives came out of the woodwork and wanted the jewelry and all the good stuff, and I just wanted what I found in the bottom drawer of a pantry, and that was programs from the World Series and the All-Star Game in 1947, 48, 49. So these are in really good shape. My picture is awful, but this is the 25th anniversary of Yankee Stadium, which I don't think exists anymore. The 48 World Series, the 49, and that's the All-Star Game. I think it was in St. Louis. And the good part is they came with the ticket stubs too. And those are worth some money, I guess, but once again, who knows? But there's the All-Star Game at Ebbets Field in Chicago. Ticket to get in. Tickets were pretty simple in those days. Look at Yankees, Red Sox, little blue card, April 22nd, 1949. So anyway, I have some of those too. But in closing, you know, and again, I'm harking back to the old days, but I really miss those days of like pickup baseball. Nobody does that anymore, and I don't know why. Apparently, back in my day, my mother should have called like Mark Catone's mother and said, can Mark come down and play with Terry baseball or something? But we didn't do those things. We knew at 9 o'clock at the cornfield, that's where you meet. And we played baseball from April to the end of August. And then in September, we started football on the cornfield. Some of these names we didn't even know. My dad grew up in the same neighborhood on Green Street, but close to where I live. He called the cornfield Brady's Field. There were cows in it and stuff when he played baseball. And you know, we had Fuller Field, we had Dane Field, we had Philbin's Field, we had Lake Field, which you can't even tell is a field anymore, in Duck Harbor. There was McGee's on, Greeley Hill.
Dewey Street.
Where was it?
Off of Dewey Street, between Dewey and Magnolia Ave.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I never played there. The Greeley Hill kids never invited me up there. We called it Brower's Field. Now Bob McNally put his house in the middle of the field, so we can't play there anymore. But I don't think that was their field, but we called it that. Just like, where was it, O'Connell's. Sean's over here. I don't think O'Connell's owned the field, but because Jimmy was a friend of ours, when it was time to play baseball, we were going to meet at O'Connell's field. So, who did own it, Sean?
It was cut up into 4 lots. It was actually called Farmers Field.
Farmers?
Yeah.
We never called it that.
Stretch all Nolan's on the stretch, and then Nolan, the grandfather, on the stretch, and then Franco, Larry, he on the stretch.
Oh, yes, all neighbors. But again, Jimmy was our friend, so we played ball at O'Connell's field. That's what we did.
We promised not to raid your guys.
I know at like Brower's Field, Jimmy O'Connell was the only left-handed batter. And every time he hit, he would put it somewhere behind Charlie Roddy's house on Wilson Street, lose the ball, and then the game was over. But I really do miss those days of that. And we lost something. We certainly lost something. Everybody played. It didn't matter how bad you were. Maybe you had to do the bat thing, and yeah, you were the last one picked. But nobody said, get lost, kid, you can't play. Everybody played. Everybody had a good time. That's how it was. And I wish we were back in those days. Paul Z isn't here, but I wanted to say, if there's any questions, I'll answer them. Paul Z, I'm not selling anything that you saw.